Hello and welcome to Pods Like Us. I'm Martin Quibell, known to my friends as Marv, and this time I'm speaking with Rod Spottiswoode, who is the creative, dare I say, genius behind Elf Control. Hey Rod, thanks for speaking with me today.
No worries, Marv. Thanks for the interest.
Oh yeah, I mean, was it last year or the year? I think it was the year before last, so 2 years ago. I binge listened to the first 3 seasons, and then waited, obviously, for a long time for season 4, and now I've waited a long time till season 5, which started last week, and that made me really happy when it came out. So, I mean, how do we explain this? It's Santa's team who make the toys and organise Christmas for him, and Alphonse, who's the head elf, he's he comes up with new ideas, shall we say, to try and make things work better.
Yeah, so Elf Control is sort of the name I've given to kind of the main reception or the administration block of Santa's workshop, I suppose. So Alphonse works out of there. He's got his assistant Grumble, and Alphonse sort of manages the books, the budgets. He runs the workshop, and he's always trying to save a buck and improve efficiency and costs for the workshop. He's answerable to Santa. And he just tries to keep things ticking along.
Yep. And some of his plans don't, well, a lot of his plans don't normally work out the way that he thinks that they will.
Not always, no. So, for example, he's taken the traditional method of toy making and he's really modernized things in the workshop. So now it's very automated. He's eliminated the need for a lot of the hammering and sawing, and also the singing, which has made him very happy to get rid of all of that elf singing in the workshop.
Absolutely. Yes, the RT6000 is doing its job.
It is, yeah. That's the ribbon tying machine, yes. And there's also the sticker machine, which did become voice activated, and then progression on that, it became thought activated. So yes, a lot of silliness and nonsense is my overlay on Santa's workshop. So yeah, it's all a bit of fun.
But it hasn't stopped. Is it Elaf from having so much nervousness, and he ends up going to see psychiatrist quite a lot?
Yeah, probably more so anger management. He's got a bit of a short fuse. Elaf's the workshop foreman. So he's answerable to Alphonse, who he doesn't see an awful lot because Alphonse doesn't really like getting his hands dirty and going down to the workshop. So Elaf is the main foreman. So I think it was episode 2 this series. He goes to the Zen Den of Fury Control to consult with Elfabian, who is helping him with a bit of anger management.
Yeah.
So yes, bit of therapy.
No, I cannot, even though I was trying all day. I was trying to remember what the name of the lady who's at the end of the operator phone. I'm trying to remember who that is. That's
Melfa.
That's it. Melfa.
Yeah. So Melfa's the receptionist. So she takes all the calls. She's like the front gate to Santa's workshop, and she's really kind of the brains and keeps things running. She's the centered head. What do you call it? The sensible one, I suppose.
Well, you need somebody to be sensible when Santa's drinking so much eggnog.
That's it. Yeah. Oh, it's maybe a bit of a cliche to have Santa as the drunken Santa, but it makes it a bit of fun, and it means I get to use lots of burping sound effects too, which is also a bit of fun.
Yeah, so I mean, we're saying this, but I think it's a show that works for all ages, personally, or most ages, because it doesn't go, it's not crude, it's not really that naughty, I don't think, in any way. So I mean, how did you come about creating it? And then there's a certain area where you'll go almost to that point and then know exactly where to cut it off before it goes past being, so shall we say, family friendly.
Yeah, well, I guess a big filter for me is that my kids will listen, and I want my kids to be involved in it. I guess part of one of my incentives for doing it was to really show the creative process to my kids from an idea, and I'd involve them with some of the ideas, and my son would give me some jokes. I think they were maybe 9 and 7 when I first started, and they're 13 and 11 now. And my son would say, "Oh, what if Rudolph got cold and his nose turned blue?" He would give me ideas, and I would involve that. So I always wanted to keep it family friendly, but also wanted it to be funny. And comedy does have to be a bit edgy, and got to have something for the grown-ups as well. So yeah, family friendly was very important to me. But yeah, there is always a temptation to push boundaries, but then that's where my wife helps out as well, because I'll show her the draft script, and she's a bit of a filter as well. She'll say, "No, you can't say that." So it's good to have those eyes across it as well.
That's great. So it's a full family project then.
To a degree, yeah. I like to involve everyone. I always try and give a little role to to my kids as well. Like for Santa store visit, they'll always be one of the kids that pops up. My son plays Nick, the work experience kid, in the workshop, and they've really embraced it and enjoyed it. So yeah, just showing them the creative process has been really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, during our discussions before, you've mentioned that the voices, you've used people that you know that they are actual real actors in real life, are they?
Yeah, so my sort of work career has been in video production, and I've just over the years worked with various people. A couple of guys I used to work with on corporate events, they would kind of MC the event. I'd be the video guy, and we'd work together and make some funny little videos for the event. Yeah, and just people I've worked with and come across over the years. Jeff Payne, who plays Alphonse, he's a very proficient actor. He's got a regular gig on Neighbours.
Yeah.
And Russell, who plays Santa and Elphys and various other bits and pieces. He's a very accomplished comedian. They've done a lot of improv as well. So on the record day, they always add their own little bit of ad-libbing and bit of fun. Yeah, and yeah, the others, a couple of friends that I've just roped in, and yeah, it's always a fun day getting them together when I see them once a year for the record day.
So you're creating a show for all ages. What inspired you then to actually start this? Was it about just you were generally thinking of something to do then? What you were saying, was that your initial inspiration then of just trying to do something creative with your family and your children?
A little bit, yeah. As I said, I work in video production, and it's it's corporate video. It's a bit dry, and I really wanted to have a creative outlet. And I've always had a love for audio and radio comedy. My dad exposed me to the Goon Show as a kid. Don't know if you know Chicken Man.
Okay.
Dick Orkin's Chicken Man. Very silly, very absurd. Just always had a love for that radio comedy. And having worked in video, it's so much easier just to work in audio without the visuals. And you could have a scene two characters talking, and then at the very end of the scene, one of them can say to the other, yes, but don't you think you should put your pants on first? Or you know, you can just have that element of comedy that you can't do in the visual medium. So yeah, it's fun, and the inspiration was from a love of audio comedy.
You know, just going away on a tangent slightly here. It's funny you should mention that, because I was chatting with Ian, who makes the show Cold War Conversations, and we were speaking about both of our love of old radio in essence, and he was talking about how he used to listen to back in the 70s when he was younger, and in the 80s, and I have similar listening to this. We were saying that we used to occasionally accidentally come across shortwave signals that were like from number stations or from other countries, and listen to those, and we just found all that. And I have this thing I have some shows I listen to that they've put out as podcast, where they found old footage of shows from old radio, and they've put those out, and I have a fascination for that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And there was also a breakfast radio show that I grew up loving, The D Generation, here in Melbourne. And then I guess that was also part of me making it family friendly. It was initially I wanted to make just short, and that's why my episodes are so short, because I was initially thinking of a pitch to radio, or thinking where it would work in radio. I never sort of set out to create a podcast. It was just about making a old-fashioned radio comedy show. You know, I'd love to do one of those dramas where they have all the live sound effects and the live band and everything like that. There's something sentimental about it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, thinking about it, when you mentioned to me the inspiration of the Goon Show, I've thought back to some of the episodes, and I've thought, yeah, in some ways you can almost imagine Milligan, you know, Harry, Spike, and Pete, and later, you know, Michael Bentine as well. You could imagine all of them doing these voices and these characters in a way.
Yeah, and I love having the actors playing different characters, and sometimes on the record day I'll have a new character, like a store manager or something, and I'll just say to one of them, oh, can you just do this, and just see what they come up with. Yeah, so I love that sort of improv side of it as well, and that gives it that live feel.
So are they actually recording all together then, like the Goons used to back in the day when they're in the same booth recording?
I've tried my best to record it all together. So series 1 was recorded all together, and series 5, the latest one, was recorded all together, and it's great. It's so much fun. They bounce off each other, and I think you get a much better result. But because of the lockdowns and COVID in 2020, here in Melbourne, we earned the reputation of the most locked down city in the world. So when I was trying to record it, we were restricted to having one guest per day to your house for 1 hour, and that was as relaxed as it got at the time. So there was no way I could get everyone together. So yeah, series 2 was a real challenge, recording everyone individually. That was just a lot of work, where I had to edit every single line and voice and record everyone individually. So I had to read all the offlines as well. So it was just a massive exercise, but hey, we were in lockdown, so I had time as well.
Wow, that's tricky. I mean, I remember I did a voice for the Icarus complex. I played a character in that, and I found that really difficult because of the fact that I was essentially, I mean, at least they had you to bounce off, whereas me, I was just giving these lines, and it was just like, do these lines with this sort of emotion and send me the files. And it was just strange because you're acting to nothing.
Absolutely, that'd be really hard. So when I'm reading the offlines, I'm trying to inject the character's voice and everything into it. So it was quite exhausting doing every script for every character. But listening, I don't think you'd really be able to tell. So I think it was an okay result. And then other years, it's always hard to schedule all 5 of the cast all at once with their busy lives. So quite often there'd be one that I'd have to record separately, and I would just turn the cupboard in my study into a bit of a blanket fort and try and make it as soundproof as possible, and yeah, record one at a time where I had to.
Wow, that's incredible. So inspired by Goons and those old radio shows. So the scripting then, how do you go about that? You've said that there's some ad libs as well by people where they could make up things as well. So how do you go about the scripting of the show itself?
Yeah, well, it's all scripted. So I would write the script. I would try and get it done in 6 months. I think series 1, I started in 2014 and finished in 2019. But then every year after that, I would try and get it done kind of from January through till the end of May, have it in draft form by June. And my wife Jacinda was very generous in giving me space to schedule the time to get lots of coffee and my laptop and just type away. And that was the part I really loved, the scripting and the coming up with the silly ideas and thinking about it. Really loved that part of it. And the recording was fun, but then all the editing and mixing, because I work as an editor, that really felt like hard work. That was a bit of a grind, all the editing and mixing, all that work. But yeah, the scripting, lots of fun. And just finding the time, because it was hard to do it in short bursts, because you would have to think, okay, now where am I up to? What have I done? So you'd kind of have to read through and get back into the flow. So you'd really need to lock away good few hours to get a run on.
So you've got the script out there, then you've got the actors doing the parts and reading the lines essentially, but then they are, like you said, they are improvising at the same time around that. So is your script sort of like a guide essentially for them to work around, or do you stick to that and then let them improvise around what's there?
Yeah, I mean, they stick to the script pretty tightly, and we'll do a few run throughs, and then once they sort of get into it and get a feel, they might throw in a few bits and pieces here and there. But I mean, it is very scripted.
Yeah. So is it more about the inflections or the way that they actually say the script, or do they make slight alterations?
Slight alterations here and there. Quite often they'll just pick something up and say, oh, wouldn't it be funnier if I said this or did it this way? And it's like, yeah, absolutely, great idea. So yeah, their contribution on the record day was really valuable.
That's good. So, and then you've recorded it. How would you record the show?
Well, where I work in the video production of a company called CMS Australasia, which does corporate events, audio, visual, staging, lighting, all of that. So fortunate enough to have a TV studio at my disposal with all the gear I need. So yeah, they're very generous in letting me use whatever I wanted. I also had audio experts at my disposal to help me set up and plug everything in and basically get it to a point where I just had to hit record on Pro Tools and make sure there were levels so I could kind of do it all myself. But just having, yeah, good people and good facilities around me, it was just such a bonus. I've never had to go out and research and buy mics. It was just like, oh, which mics should I use? Oh, these ones will be best. Perfect. So I've been really fortunate in that regard.
That's really good. I mean, so you've got the experts there who know what microphones to use and what sort of how to set it all up. And then I'm guessing that is how you would source the effects as well, because they're already available through that work.
A little bit, yeah. As a video editor putting videos together, you're always using sort of stock libraries for production music. Everything has to be royalty free and copyrighted and licensed. And I was mindful, because I was thinking of pitching it to radio, I wanted everything to be licensed and legit. So I had subscriptions to some production music libraries over the years, Storyblocks and Artlist. So yeah, I was able to just type in lots of really obscure searches into the sound effects libraries and find what I needed and find all my Christmas absurd polka music, and all my music came from these libraries. And yeah, that could quite be a challenge to find exactly the right sound effect. That would take a lot of time.
Yeah. So how many different belches did you go through before you got the correct one for Santa?
A lot. I probably had a folder of 10 go-to sound effects. And especially like the first couple of series was hard because you'd have to find everything. By the time you got to series 3, 4, and 5, I could do a bit of a copy and paste because I'd already used them. So all my ringtones and knocking and background ambience that I put into each scene was already there. So it kind of got easier as you went along.
So is it each of the machines then now that are in the workshop, have they all got their own individual sound file?
Yeah, they do. They do now. Now that the workshop is automated, Series 5 is, well, in Series 1, it's all hammering and sawing and, yeah, workshop sound effects. Now it's just sort of kind of the white noise drone of machines and the beeps. And there's even a thunk, thunk, thunk for the sticker machine, which pops in every now and then. Yeah, I've got in, it's very subtle, but in Alphonse's office, there's like a split system heater going because he's got the nice heated office. So there's just a bit of a heater. In Santa's room, there's a crackling of a fire. It's very hard to get a sound effect that sounds like a fireplace and doesn't sound like sort of static popping. Outdoors, there's always a little bit of wind and bird noise. Not that there's many birds on the North Pole, but it's nice to have a little bit of birdie noise, I think, when they're outdoors. And reindeer sound effects is very challenging. So I've got, I think it's just called wild beast effect or something for whenever I've got the reindeer, because I actually don't even know what reindeer sound like.
Okay, right. No, I'm trying to think what they sound like now as well. I mean, I've seen reindeer in real life, but I've not got a clue what they sound like thinking about it. No.
Yeah, and I've labelled them as smelly. I don't actually know if they do smell, but according to Elf Control, they're smelly beasts.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've seen them trumping on films before now. So I'm trying to think now. I mean, that reminds me of something. I'm going on another tangent here because I'm a bit of a fan of Star Trek, and I remember watching a behind the scenes, and they were explaining how on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, they were saying that if you listen carefully, they've actually got the background hum of the systems, and you can hear them in the background. So when you go in different rooms or different areas of the space station, you hear the sound. They've got the same rumbling going on in the background, but slightly other different noises according to which area they're in. And I thought and I've noticed that with your show where, like you've said, there's all these different sounds in the background, and that really grabs my attention because it's attention to detail, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got to convey, and I probably didn't quite do it enough, but every time someone comes or goes, I've got different doors opening and closing. So just the subtlety, when the door opens, there's a gust of wind because they're on the North Pole. So the wind sort of blows and then the door closes and that stops. Footsteps, you've got to convey movement just with sound effects, rustling of clothes if they're moving or dragging something. When Alphonse is in his jacuzzi, that's always a bit of fun. Put a bit of reverb on the voice to convey a bathroom and lots of splashes and drips, and yeah, it's good fun. Good fun. Can be laborious trying to find the exact sound effect that you need.
Almost as much fun as Grumble has when he occasionally gets his way into that hot tub, jacuzzi or whatever. Yeah.
That's right. Yes, when he sees Alphonse in the nude, it's always a good reaction.
It is. So, and then the music as well, like you've mentioned, or in passing. I mean, I think the music, the main theme to it, is absolutely perfect because it's got that element that is Christmassy, but also fun and maybe a bit. It has that sort of sense of it. It may be a bit risque in places.
Yeah, it's playful, and I've probably got at least 100 tracks that I went through and downloaded. But when I heard it, yeah, you kind of just know when you hear the right one, you just know. And that was just, I was so relieved to have found that track. That's the intro and the outro music. It really sets the tone. And then I've got my narrator, the voiceover guy who does the intros and outros. Jason Cameron, he's a former newsreader journalist, so he's got that polished newsreader type of voice, and he's a good friend of mine. And yeah, I just love putting his voice over that music. It's
Yeah, and then all the other music that you have, like when they have a party, when all the when the presents have been delivered and Santa's done his job, and then they have the after party afterwards. That music's great as well.
Yeah, just the process of finding the right one. It's always got to be playful. It can't sound too corporate video. Yeah, always looking for some playful, different element that normally you would, if you're looking for music for a video, that you would go, oh no, that's terrible. That's usually the one that I pick. And I found a good Jingle Bells track. Was it Jingle? No, I don't think it was Jingle Bells, but for the store visit episode, which I think is the next one that'll be released, I found if I put this the ringtone effect on this music for in the store, it just sounded perfect. It really sounded like department store music. So yeah, there's a bit of playing around, and yeah, and just finding the right track.
Wow, I'm looking forward to that one then, that episode,
Mm.
as I do all of them. And then the logo as well is relatively, it's the North Pole, but it's changed each year, hasn't it? Actually, I think you've changed the picture each year.
Yeah, I've just changed the background color, so it's all exactly the same. Again, where I work, there's graphic designers on staff, so I got one of our guys, Andy Behrens, to describe the show 5 years ago when I first started, and he came up with that. That was pretty much his first draft, and he just nailed it first time with the little Santa hat, the back to front F. Yeah, and I've just changed the color for each series, which I don't know if that's the right or wrong thing to do, whether to mess with a brand like that, but I just thought it might be nice to distinguish each season.
I think it works. It tells you, it like you said, it distinguishes one season to the next, and I always like it when audio dramas do that. There's a few of them that do it, not an awful lot, but a few of them that do it. Shout out to Harvey, who does the artwork for the Chronicles of Wild Hollow, because they do a great job of doing the same thing as well, but they differentiate season to season as well.
Yeah, I was thinking of my my DVD collection where you've got different seasons, and when it's just a different color, it just makes it's obvious to see which one when you're picking it off the shelf. So
yeah,
yeah,
all these television shows, you have a different picture on the front as well. So it's almost like you'll have the same cast, but there'll be a different picture of the same cast, essentially.
Yeah.
So let's have a look. What have I got next? Actually, before we do this, is there a standout moment from the show that you think that you really is there a standout moment in the show to you?
Hard to say. I think just season 1, episode 1 kind of sets the tone, where you've got Grumble's new deer venison eating Mrs. Claus's holly bush, and then the deer, it upsets his stomach and he shoots poo pellets at Mrs. Claus and sends her to hospital. For me, in a way, that sets the tone of just it being silly, absurd, a bit childish, because you've got your poo jokes in there. just a lot going on. For me, that kind of set the tone early on that I just wanted it to be very silly, anything can happen, and just fun. I think down the track I've added sort of your modern overlays to the workshop, and injected a few modern things like AI, and this whole series now is about the coal crisis and finding an alternative to coal. So yeah, trying to find interesting ways to inject modern overlays. Like people were saying, oh, you should include COVID and the pandemic. It's like, well, I don't want to be too specific or literal in that regard, but I did make Santa and Mrs. Claus get very ill, not exactly COVID, but they did get sick. So yeah, but no specific moment. It's been quite a journey over the 50 episodes now.
It is. That's a great, but yeah, it is about 80 episodes. Well, 50 episodes, like you said. So what have I got now? A Christmas moment. So I think by this, I think I'm trying to. So what are your own memories of Christmas? Why does it mean so much to you, do you think?
When coming up with the idea for the show, I never really wanted to do anything Christmas specifically. It was just like, I wanted to do something, and I'm listening to shows trying to find inspiration and ideas. And I actually came up with the title before anything else. It was just a play on words of self-control. Oh, elf control. Oh, that'd be a funny name for Santa's Workshop. And then it just sort of snowballed from there into an idea. And then I thought, well, Christmas, it really gives the show a bit of a focus. There's a lot of material there to work on. And it also gives me a nice hard deadline and a schedule. When you're doing a creative project, it could just go on forever and never get anywhere. But having that rigid schedule and a deadline, I found that really motivating and helpful. So yeah, it wasn't a real connection with Christmas at all, although once you have kids, Christmas is kind of reinvigorated and becomes a very special time of year. So yeah, but then one of the worst things is it is such a busy time of the year, and the lead up to the end of the year and trying to make this show as well. It has been challenging, but yeah, never set out to do anything specifically Christmassy. It just sort of happened that way.
So staying with that, with what you were saying there with the making of it, that's bringing me back to something you mentioned earlier on. So you originally started thinking about this in 2014, and then had it ready for 2019 when it started. You had 5 years working on the first season, essentially. Then was there a bit of trepidation or a bit of nervousness with you then, where you've spent 5 years creating the first season, and you've suddenly got 5-6 months to come up with the following season?
Yeah, but I think it's good having that push. I probably started in 2014 and worked on it for 5 minutes here and there, and didn't really get on with it. And then, yeah, my wife was really encouraging. It was probably just a bit of lack of self-belief as well to get a team together, get the actors together, and to actually present a script that I had created to say, here you go, read this. And, I'm giving it to fairly accomplished actors who have done some nice shows. They've done comedy festivals around the world, some of these guys. So it was a little bit, this, here you go. So just finding, having that self-belief to actually produce something. So yeah, my wife was really encouraging in that regard. But then, having the deadline to then go and do series 2 and know I had to get the script done, I found that really helpful.
Yeah. Okay. I'll guess then that because of the positivity over the first season with the people that came in who, like you said, were experienced and had that history, and the fact that they were so positive about that, probably that might have rubbed off on you then and given you that bit more positivity to go ahead and write and be more accepting of going to write season 2 and come up with it as quickly as you did in comparison.
Yeah, I'd say so, exactly. And even for that first series, I wasn't really, I'd put it on the Podbean or whatever, but didn't really track it at all. I'd more put it on Facebook and share it with friends, and friends would go, "Oh, that's all right." Half your friends wouldn't even bother looking at it, and some would like it. But yeah, you're right. There was enough encouragement there to keep me going, and the actors and my close inner circle really embraced it and encouraged me to keep going with it. So, and it was good. Yeah, my kids really enjoyed it as well. So, yeah, we just kept it rolling.
Are there any bits from that first year then when you were showing it to these people that jump out at you as moments that you really liked? Sort of, are there any moments, say, when they were looking at things and you'd hear them have a giggle or something, that's something that you'd written or something and that made you feel better? Are those sort of moments?
Yeah, and that's really rewarding, especially, when you're making comedians laugh. That was quite gratifying. I think just the whole absurdity of the story with, there was industrial action in the workshop, the elves going on strike, South Pole elves coming because they're gifted with electronics, and then they get wiped out. So a bit of an elf genocide happened. It's just the silliness of it, but people seem to like it. And it was just always been a bit of fun. It's never been trying to get as many downloads as possible or likes and follows. It's all just been a little bit of fun. And people seemed to enjoy working on the team. I've never seen myself as much of a leader or anything, but when people kind of joined the team and came along with it, they seemed to really enjoy it. And it was like, oh, wow, okay. But yeah, it was good. It was encouraging. So yeah, we kept it going.
Well, the way that you've written it and the way that it's produced, it does, it has a sort of element to it where it's like some of the best audio drama that you can listen to, where you can lose yourself in there and you can actually almost imagine and feel being there. In essence, if you shut your eyes, it's almost like you can see it in an audible fashion. It's just, I think that's how it works really well.
Oh, that's good. That's nice to hear that. And I think keeping it to I was always aiming for 3 to 4 minute episodes. I think it's nice to have the audience wanting more, not just tuning out because it's running too long. And just being mindful of attention spans, and people are such voracious consumers these days, just keeping it nice and short. I did feel like, people were always wanting the next episode, what's coming, what's next, which I think was a good approach.
Like you said earlier on, when you were saying about the possibly pitching it to radio stations, it does sound like one of those shows in a way, because of the length, where it would work like that. Because I remember radio shows back in the day, you'd have like these little almost like sketch things going on in a normal radio show. So you'd have a radio show that lasted for a couple of hours, and every now and again they'd have these little like story bits come in that are only like 4 or 5 minutes, and then they'll go back to their normal show. So it sort of fits into that format as well.
Yeah, and that was always the intent. Yeah, there would be like that little 3-minute segment in the 2-hour show that you would sort of listen to the show for. That's really what the original idea was.
So what, outside of your own show though, what sort of Christmas media stands out to you as somebody who enjoys the Christmas period, and and things that you enjoy? Well, basically, what's your go-to for Christmas media?
Probably Christmas movies with the kids is always a tradition, so we try and start that early. We watched Home Alone last night because there's only so many movie nights before Christmas, so we are getting into the Christmas movies already. And anytime there's a Christmas special in a show, like whether it's the Simpsons or something, I'm always actually on the lookout for what's a good looking elf, because I kind of think that this would make a nice animated series as well. But elves are kind of creepy looking, horrible things. So it's quite rare to find an elf image that I go, oh, that could be it. That's getting close. So yeah, I'm kind of got a little interest in elves now. But yeah, so mostly Christmas movies, I'd say.
It's interesting you should say that. So is that something that you are looking at, or something that's just there in the background still thinking about with the animated variation of the show?
It's very much in the background, but people say it to me a lot, and I need to take the time to work out what the steps would be in achieving that. And yeah, the time might come to kind of rest the show, to stop making it for a little bit and look into some of the avenues for it. So yeah, we'll see.
Good luck with that. So what's I going to say? So what advice would you give to people wanting to create their own audio dramas or audio entertainment?
I think for me, the hurdle was just getting started. I think, the blank piece of paper, the blinking cursor can be quite daunting just to get started. But if video editing's taught me anything, it's that it's easier to make something bad better.
Yep.
It's hard getting started, but you've got to have something to improve upon. So when I write, it's easier to fix something or rewrite something rather than get started. So you just got to get started, put something down, even knowing that it's rubbish and will never see the light of day. It's easier to fix something that's terrible than, yeah. So you just have to get started.
You have almost word for word said exactly the same as Nicholas Tarkovsky, who writes horror films and horror audio, who I spoke with last week. He said almost exactly the same thing. He said that the way he gets around it is just to write something, and his words were something like, even if it's rubbish, you've got the story there to be able to then go to and essentially clean it up and make it into something that's worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that, as I said, with video editing, I've found that exactly. You've got to just cut a few shots together, and then you can always go back and fix the start, because you get bogged down at the start. Yep. So just do a rubbish start, get into it, and then you always go back and redo the start later on. And also found having a schedule, like having the Christmas thing, really helped. It kept me accountable. I knew I had to record by a certain date. Then if I wanted to post my first episode on December 6th, I would work back from there and see when everything had to happen. So having a schedule and having people around you that were supportive and could keep you accountable as well, and just check up on you and review your work as you go, if that's helpful. Yeah, and trying not just doing it on your own. It's got to be a little bit collaborative.
In passing, I will just mention, it must be, in your ordinary job outside of this, it must be a lot easier now, because I remember when I went to college and I was doing media, we were still editing using actual videotape, which was a pain. So I'm guessing that now that must be a lot easier with digital technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I started on videotape, and tell all the kids today that they'll never know the joys of having to rewind a tape or do video dubs. You'd always just start with dubbing and digitizing footage. Yeah, I mean, then you've got other issues now with technology. You've got to be a bit of a software engineer to work out why computer's not working. And so, yeah, and data management issues now. So yeah, I've had to sort of keep up with the technology and the new ways. And I find the older I get, the least willing or the harder it is to learn new software. So Yeah, still new challenges, but yes, a lot easier than working with videotape, that's for sure.
Like Homer Simpson says, to learn new things, he's got to get rid of the old stuff that is in his brain already.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what advice would you give to people starting an actual podcast?
Yeah, I guess to find your target audience. Podcast listeners, speaking for myself, very fussy and particular. You know, a lot of podcasts, you're looking for very niche audiences. I actually did some judging for the Australian Podcast Awards where I had to go through, I think it was 40 or 50 podcasts, and it was incredible how niche and specific a lot of these audiences were. So yeah, I think knowing your audience is important. And in judging those awards as well, I found whenever the podcasts were a little bit slow and lingered for too long, I found that hard to listen to. You just want to keep it sleek and moving along. And then also audio quality for me is a huge one as well. Yeah, it's just got to be good sound.
Okay. But yeah, I'd say that if you're starting a podcast, then make sure that you've got a decent mic to start with, and then you can build from there and get better quality eventually as well, though.
I guess so. Yeah. Just don't let that hold you back from starting. And that's the beauty of audio. It's a relatively easy format to work in, compared to video production. So yeah.
I mean, you can start with a relatively cheap microphone that you plug into your thing. If you can, please avoid using the microphone that's built into your laptop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, do your research. Lots of big podcast beginners, lots of videos online to help you get started.
Yeah. So what shows do you like to listen to yourself?
I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, probably because my commute to work is so short. Yep. I don't have a lot of time in the car, and I don't spend a lot of time listening. I'm a big NBA fan and the American basketball. Yep. There's a lot of teams, a lot of games. It's really hard to keep track of and follow. So when I do get a bit of time to listen, I'm listening to NBA podcasts just to catch up on the news. And then for my audio comedy fiction, I'm tending to go to YouTube for that.
Yep. So what sort of thing on YouTube do you follow?
People Like Us. Are you familiar with that one? That's an old BBC.
Yep.
And that's a real go-to for me. I absolutely love that. Just that mockumentary style of thing. It's probably somewhere I would like to go next. That sort of style of comedy really resonates with me.
Yeah, that sounds great. So where can people find you and get hold of you then, Rod?
Best place, I'm not totally active on social media, but I do use the Twitter or X, at Elf Control is my handle. And yeah, that's sort of the main place to find me. Just search for Elf Control anywhere and I'll pop up.
Great. Anyway, thank you for speaking with me today, Rod. This was fun.
Yeah, thanks, Marv. Really appreciate it. You're doing a great job.
Thank you very much. You can find Pods Like Us on any streaming platform, also on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, and contact us through podslikeus@gmail.com. There's also a Patreon as well that's £1 a month if you want any extra bits and pieces where I put reviews of shows and advice and tips for people as well occasionally. But anyway, thank you everyone for listening, and hope you listen again to another episode of Pods Like Us. Thank you for that, Rod.